All right, but let's get started with the latest in the big political story this evening. Tomorrow morning, the Union Cabinet is expected to meet, and everybody's wondering whether Dayanidhi Maran will be attending that meeting. All this after a dramatic status report submitted by the CBI in the Supreme Court, which openly and squarely accused the now textile minister and the former telecom minister of having been coercive in his dealings with Aircel, saying that Dayanidhi Maran forced the then owner of Aircel to sell to another telecom company, which then got a telecom license. There were also sharp words by the Supreme Court for the Corporate Affairs Ministry and for several corporate players. Let me now get you the latest through my colleagues Sunetra Chaudhary and Sandeep Phukan, joining us now with the latest on all of these developments. Sunetra, first, if you can take us through the key observations that the Supreme Court made, about, or rather the CBI made in its status report to the Supreme Court about Dayanidhi Maran's role.
Well, Dayanidhi Maran's role, they focused on basically one of the cases. The other case, of course, the BSNL telephone exchange, which he was allegedly running in his home and which was in Sun TV. That's a different thing. What has really come up in this is the coercive role. Did he actually force Shivashankaran to sell his stake in Aircel to Maxiv in return for the quid pro quo, 800 crores? CBI says that Maran really played a role. But of course, CBI, when we asked them later on, Barkha, that you have made it very clear. So why is the FIR now pending? Why don't you put it on record? CBI says they were just listing out allegations. And of course, the usual thing of saying media focuses on the other thing. They've said in the status report, they've gone into the other ministers as well. They've looked at the role of Arun Shourie and also the late Pramod Mahajan. But of course, what's really actually catching the headlines, grabbing is the main thing right now is Dayanidhi Maran, because he's the sitting minister. What's also interesting is that when they look at the entire report, the other thing that they focused on is that 4 witnesses. Star witness against Dayanidhi Maran, of course, C. Shivashankaran, former owner of Aircel. He has made these allegations. He was threatened. He was forced to sell. They sat on it. The other, of course, witness is Nripendra Mishra, the DOT secretary, who says, in fact, very interestingly, our sources telling us that he, in his testimony, says that while in other companies, they were cleared immediately, spectrum allocated on usual time, when he went to Dayanidhi Maran and asked him why was the delay in Aircel, Dayanidhi Maran quoted, according to him, he said, "What's the hurry?" CBI says, of course, these allegations, they're still waiting for a lot more. They're saying that you can't just go by these allegations. You have to get substantial evidence. And of course, this Aircel Max's deal is one which was looked at internationally.
Sunetra, you mentioned the quid pro quo, and I think we do need to explain that to our viewers who may not be following this case so closely. Basically, the allegation being that there was the owner of Max's, Anand Krishnan, then invested almost 800 crores in Sun TV, which is owned by the Maran family. Dayanidhi Maran has maintained that he's not directly connected with the dealings in his defense. But very briefly, Sunetra, before I go on to Sandeep Phukan, there were some sharp observations by the Supreme Court for the Corporate Affairs Ministry. The court actually is saying ignore what it called the double speak of the Corporate Affairs Ministry on SR Loop, because the ministry has changed its mind over whether SR was a front for Loop.
That's right, Barkha. Very, very quickly, I'm just going to say that Supreme Court's observation, while it was limited to the Loop SR connection, this is not the first time that we are seeing these kind of allegations against the Corporate Affairs Ministry. If you recall, even in the other case of Swan Telecom and ADAG, even there'd been a change of stance. But on this case, what they were referring to is a somersault. Supreme Court called it somersault. Why? Because in April 2009, at that time, the report of MCA said that Loop is an associate of SR, clearly establishing a relationship. Right now, there's a complete volte-face. Right now, they're saying the one that has been given just 2 months ago from the MCA to the Department of Telecom says that there isn't any kind of relationship like that, and also saying that it is not an associate company. So it's very significant. CBI, of course, quoting the observation of the Supreme Court, which says don't pay attention to that.
All right, we seem to have lost Sunetra there. Let me get Sandeep Phukan in just to that crucial point. We were talking about the Supreme Court's observations on the Corporate Affairs Ministry. But Sandeep, the key question is what happens to Dayanidhi Maran now? We know that Telecom Minister Kapil Sibal met with the Prime Minister. There was also a core group meeting at the Prime Minister's residence. It was meant to be on Telangana, but of course, Dayanidhi Maran came up as well. Will he be attending the cabinet meeting tomorrow?
Well, in all likelihood, yes. I mean, just to answer your question, I mean, I just want to share a small anecdote with Raja's resignation. Barkha, if you recall, it was a Sunday. Raja was in Chennai. He flew down from Chennai to Delhi. We all knew that his resignation was anytime expected. All our colleagues, including Sunetra, who was tracking that story in Delhi that day, went and tried interviewing him at the airport, and he said, "Why should I resign?" And then before we could realize, it was all over for him. I mean, in less than 30 minutes, he went to the Prime Minister, submitted his resignation, and it was all over. I think the Congress on its part officially distanced themselves. They said that we are not the spokesperson for the CBI. If the CBI has said something about Maran coercing ASL owner to the court, then you better go and ask the CBI. It's between the court and the CBI. That's the Congress position. They have distanced themselves. Insofar as the government is concerned, I've been speaking to senior sources in the government. They say that these are only allegations. Where's the charge sheet? Where's the FIR? Where's the proof? I think there are two allegations. The more serious one, my sources say, is the one where it is alleged that he actually ran a parallel exchange from his Chennai home to Sun TV network. Again, there's a CBI investigation on, but there's no proof, corroborative evidence. But having said this, Barkha, I think, politically, it's very embarrassing for the government to actually have a sitting minister, where one of its own investigative agencies, the much touted CBI, indicts a sitting minister. How do you deal with that? But we also have to realize that he's an ally. He's a minister from the alliance partner. It would have been far more easier for the Congress to say, okay, hello, bye-bye, your time's up. Your record is not all that clean. But how do you say that to DMK? So they'll have to consult the DMK. One possible way out would be, as you just mentioned, that all-important meeting between Congress President and the Prime Minister. That one possible way out could be, Barkha, that does he go out in the next reshuffle?
Or does he resign himself? Or does he resign himself?
Or does he resign himself? At the moment, I can tell you that going by Raja's experience, we get the same indications that there's no need to resign. But I can tell you that, I've learned my lessons, never say never.
And also, those are always fateful last words. Every time a minister says, why should I resign? Usually by the end of the week, he's resigned. Sunetra Chaudhary, Sandeep Hokan, thank you.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. NDTV.com/apps.